Um, okay, so this is Bob Marley, obviously. I see, the smile, the sides of the mouth got exaggerated. And definitely like the not a crooked smile, but the bottom lip, how it kind of curls. That definitely is an eye catcher. And just overall the expression. So with the head tilted over to our right or his left side, I see a long chin area. So that's just my observations of this sketch. Sketch of the week. No, I wasn't smoking the herb when I did the sketch of reggae great Bob Marley, but it would have turned out differently, maybe better if I had been. It occurred to me recently that my ongoing of musical legends and superstars had a big hole in it without including Marley, who brought reggae into the spotlight of popular music in the 1970s. There was a period of time when I listened to a fair amount of reggae in the studio, and the Wailers was a mainstay. Bob Marley remains the face of that genre of music almost 45 years since his death of melanoma at age 36. Legends and still all time. Did you know that reggae is the best type of music to put on for dogs to listen to when they are alone in the house or in a stressful environment? Now you do. Okay, so this is called From Paint to Pixels. Circa 2002, inks and mixed media, including watercolor, airbrush, and acrylics. I could definitely see the watercolor in there for sure. I could definitely see the watercolor. Okay. And you see, I was just zooming in here and just looking at how, like, this foot communicates that, it's a mound. Like, the shape of the mound is communicated by the angle of the feet that are made. So that was just something that caught my eye there. Then also what caught my eye there is just like the general proportions of like, the construction of the figures, where you have more so of a larger upper body, larger hands and legs. And yeah, so I guess what gets foreshortened here is kind of like the abdomen area, from what I see. From paint to pixels, I'm old enough to have just started my career as an illustrator before the digital revolution took place. So I started out doing my work in 100% traditional media. For me, that meant the brush. Oh, excuse me. Mixed media, in other words. The image above is one I did for the cover of the Minnesota Twins magazine in 2002. Done in traditional media. It had some of the players depicted sign it. It's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Paul, Minnesota, and graduated in 1989. There were no classes in digital creation there because there was virtually no digital creation going on at the time. We had one Macintosh computer in the school. It was located in a small attic room and was nothing but an oddity where students got to play with the rudimentary Mac Paint program using a mouse. The school still had classes in layout and keylining using rubber cement photostats and typeset. Any of that is, you are younger than 50 years old. I don't know what any of that is. Shortly after I started freelancing, programs like Quark, CorelDRAW, Illustrator, and Photoshop became more and more prevalent in the world of publication. At the time, these programs were primitive infants compared to what they have become, but as the 1990s progressed, I found some clients were asking for art rather than as physical pieces. A quick illustration history lesson. It used to be I would do most of my work on illustration board, which was really a piece of cotton or fiber-based heavy paper glued onto a pressed chipboard backing. It was very solid, unbendable in fact, and I would take wet media without warping or shrinking. I would send this original art to the client, like this spot illustration. I found at the bottom of one of my flat file drawers recently, circa 1995, for the San Francisco Giants in watercolor. Then they sent it out to a color house who would peel the paper layer off the backing, which it was designed to do. Top layer peeled off the board backing. They would then put it on a drum scanner, which was a curved cylinder that rotated through a scanner apparatus known. This would scan the art to cover it to films in CMYK, which is what were used in the printing process. The art would be returned to me with the original art layer taped on the corners to the original backing. In the early 1990s, it became apparent to me that this process was very quickly going to become obsolete as publishers switched from the laborious practice of manual layouts and keylining to producing their publications entirely on the computer. These publishers would want a digital image file, not a painting they had to send out to get colored separately, or to get color separated. Around that time, digital drawing tablets became available, which allowed artists to draw and paint with a stylus on a tablet and use pressure sensitivity to achieve line and opacity variation, rather than having to use a clumsy mouse. Seeing the writing on the wall, I invested in a powerful personal computer in one of these tablets and started experimenting with Coral Paint and Photoshop look similar to my traditional media style, but using digital tools. My entire purpose was not to ditch traditional media, but to end up with a digital file. It was all about how I delivered the final image, not how I created it. That's interesting. Flatbed scanners existed at the time, but affordable ones, black and white inks, yes, but not color. That required a pre-press scanner, which was unbelievably expensive at the time. This all led to the ink-line digital color style I use today. The tools have become much more sophisticated, but the concept remains the same. I am quite certain in the mid to late 90s, I got a lot of jobs over other freelancers because I could deliver a native digital file, while others stuck with art needing color separation and processing. Okay, that's all I want to get from that. That was pretty cool. Now let's go here. There we go. Caricature and illustration. The ability to do... Let me turn down my brightness. The ability to do good caricature illustration presenting these stories to the world need visuals to go along with whatever information they are communicating. Caricature is a unique way to represent the people who are the subject matter of these various narratives. Anyone who a client wants a reader or viewer to recognize graces the cover of Time. That said, there are some unique elements of caricature illustration for publication or media, and most involve the operative word illustration. Let's do like this. You may have noticed I said an illustrator in this chapter's first paragraph as opposed to only one element of the project as a whole. The artist is no longer doing just a caricature. He or she is doing an illustration that features caricature as a central element. That may seem like simple semantics, but it isn't. Most caricature illustrations have a larger purpose beyond simply depicting the subject's features in a funny or critical way. Story to tell about the subject, and it's the job of the illustrator to help tell that story visually. This adds the all-important narrative element to caricature illustration. A hairy situation. Caricature illustrators often do a lot of political work, especially in election years. I do work for both sides of the aisle. This one of Senator Harry Reid was for conservative candidates' election material and Photoshop. Narrative is the message the client needs an illustrator to describe visually with the art. In the case of a caricature illustration, this can sometimes be accomplished with the statement of the caricature, or sometimes the illustrator includes an environment or setting for the caricature to help present the narrative. Illustrators must be storytellers. Using visuals to tell a particular illustrators are no exception, and must use their set of skills with a particular message, the client's message and mine. Avoiding LCD. This leads us to one of the pitfalls of live caricature. One of the biggest reasons some very talented artists who make their living drawing live caricatures aren't successful doing caricature illustration. The dreadful affliction I call live caricaturist disease, LCD. Of course, it's a condition that many. I've known some live caricaturists who are incredible at capturing exaggerated likenesses, whose skill at drawing the face is absolutely spectacular. However, when confronted with the challenge of drawing a car or a building or a toaster, moreover, the narrative aspect of illustration escapes them. Why? Because live caricature usually does end at the neck, and things like figure work, environment, and narrative are distant concerns in the typical live caricaturist work day. When you draw 10,000 5-minute caricatures a year with big heads and little throwaway bodies, it's hard not to focus completely on the face. This single-minded focus to the exclusion of the rest of the world tends to atrophy the skills one needs to be an illustrator. Skills one will also need when considering to make sure the other elements in your illustrations have a look that is cohesive with your caricatures, especially when it comes to other human characters that do not represent specific people. So I just want to look at this image here. Brett the bust. Oh, look at his arm. His arm is all busted. Okay. In fact, you need to present the viewer with a cohesive and believable universe in which your caricatures look like they belong. Nick Meglin, longtime editor of Mad magazine and an illustrator himself, once explained this to me using the great Jack Davis. A caricature illustrator needs to be able to caricature both the human target and the rest of the world with equal success. And style. The artist. It's not too terribly hard to switch to new mediums and explore different techniques in order to appeal to a different set of clients, but to change the fundamental way in which you draw. Artistically speaking, a caricature's success or lack thereof isn't. The style of the artist doesn't matter. Illustrators known for their caricatures, and they work in styles that are very different from one another. All right, let me go up and take a look at this. Definitely a sour apple. This spot illustration was done for Penthouse magazine to accompany a new feature column by rocker Dave Navarro giving out advice on your love life. Pen and ink using a colored line style with digital color. Narrative here. Obviously, it's the... So I do see narrative in here. This is a... Yeah, that's interesting. That's really good. That's really good. Okay, narrative. So I know this is probably... Okay, this is High School Musical. I've never seen High School Musical. I know a lot of people have seen it. The works of C.F. Payne, John Kost, and Steve Brodner, just to name a few, are often many styles of caricature in publishing and advertising. In fact, it's over others. So, Singing the Blues. This half-page illustration was done for one of the Scholastic publications to accompany a story about the TV show High School Musical. Pen and ink with digital color. Commercially, the appeal and viability of a given style hinges on a number of factors. 1. The final result or effect the art director is looking for. Each project is a little different, and what the art director might envision for a given job will dictate the style of art. Directors will then look for an artist whose style fits the look they are seeking. If they want a crazy, exaggerated style, they'll call an artist who fits the bill. 2. The demographic and taste of the overall target audience. This falls somewhat under the umbrella of the first factor, but it has a much broader context than a single art director or single project. Each established publication has a certain visual identity, and they won't stray far from that identity regardless of the needs of. Some magazines won't use cartoony or whimsical artwork but prefer their illustrations to be more artsy and avant-garde. Others prefer a more subtle, realistic approach to their illustrations, while others might want the high-energy, loud cartoon look. Obviously, the audience that the publication is meant to appeal to and the subject matter they usually cover dictate some of that visual identity. A magazine for kids will use aesthetic styles, while one for the film industry might want something more daring. I've seen magazines that were known for using a certain style of art suddenly drop those illustrators once a new art director was hired, even though the target audience or subject matter for that magazine remained the same. 3. As with any aspect of time, many of the big entertainment magazines were using artsy wash-style spot caricatures. What is spot caricatures? I still haven't figured that out. For a long time, design-like look of Cal's work was huge for a while, but has cooled off quite a bit in the last few years. When a style is hot, an artist like Cal's and maybe one or two others will define the style, and as that style saturates or similar but lesser known illustrators, then when the popularity defining artists will still get what remains of the demand. In that way, a few top artists can always make a living doing a certain style independent of current trends, while those who were riding the popular, so your clients know what to expect and know they can come to you to get it. But there is nothing wrong with applying different techniques or rendering and execution to your natural ways of drawing that might appeal to other potential clients. I've known some illustrators who develop a radical choices for a vice presidential running mate, pen and ink with digital color. Okay. See how much more there is. The rest is just, okay. Mainly pictures. Some examples of caricature illustration. So it looks like smartphones and flip phones are cool. A couple guys in the back have smartphones. So this is probably like 2008. Somewhere around there. Character design. This caricature of reality TV star. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Joe Biden, I forget his name. Massachusetts Democrat in the top left, I forget his name. Yeah. Barack Obama, character design. Ronald. If you looked at this one. I don't really prefer this style here, like this painterly, naturalistic style. I like more of the cartoony type of style when it comes to like the painting and the line work. Well, looks like the class I have. All right, well, that's all I have. That's all I wanted to read. I'm satisfied with that. And now I know some questions that I have for some people.